Hello, I'm Jake Evans, and I'm going to tell the story of Mrs Ellis. There are many lakes across the whole of Britain, and nearly every one has its own story. There are stories about how they were formed from giants' tears, and then there's the story about Excalibur lost in a mysterious lake. And the lake behind me here, Ellesmere, has its very own story. Many, many years ago, there lived an old woman, and her house stood in the middle of this lake, because then there was no water, there was just a lush green meadow. And outside her house there was also a great well, and all the villagers from the town and the village across the road would come down to her well and take some water every day. Now, they always went to her well because the water from her well was so sweet. It was amazing. It would draw travellers in from across the marches, all across the Midlands, and even as far as Cornwall. So it was very popular, and there was always a queue lining up to take water from her well. And the old woman, she didn't mind. She was quite a kind woman, and she'd always let them take the water, and they'd come over, get the bucket, lower it down with a rope, and take their share. And this would go on for years and years and years. But eventually a summer came that was so hot that all the other wells and lakes and rivers around the area dried up, and there was no water left apart from the water in the old woman's well. Now, some say it was magic that was keeping this well from coming, and the spring that was coming up into the well was deep underground from a magical place. But all we know is that this was the only well with water left in the whole of Shropshire. And the summer got hotter and hotter, and the sun every day came up without a cloud in the sky and beat down hard on the landscape. The trees withered and died, and their leaves fell off brown and dead. And the villagers got more panicky, and they always came back to her village, back to her well, taking water. And the old woman eventually started to get worried, as she thought that maybe the water in my well will run out. She didn't have to worry because she didn't know that her well was magic and the water would never run out. But she didn't know that. So one day, the hottest day yet of that summer, all the villagers came down, clamouring with their pots and pans, shouting for water, and she said, "No! There will be not one person who will take a drop from my well anymore." And the villagers argued with her, but she would have no other way. And they all had to go back to the village empty-handed. And the next day they came back, and the day was hotter again. But still, no, not one drop of water. So the villagers went empty-handed again. And because no water was being taken from the well, the water was getting higher and higher because the magic spring kept on pushing the sweet water up. And soon it started to trickle over, and the villagers could see this, and they went back to the old woman and told her, "Please, look, there's enough water in your well, can we have some water?" "No, not one drop shall be taken." And this went on day after day, and still the summer got hotter and hotter, and the villagers were getting desperate, and every day they'd stay a little bit longer and argue a little bit harder. But no, she would have it no other way. The water finally did trickle straight over the well and started making a pond around where the well stood. And still the old woman wouldn't let any of the other villagers have any of the sweet water from her well. And this carried on, and the pond around her well got bigger every day, until it was a small lake, until it was around her house. And then the villagers couldn't even come to her house to ask for water, because the water was too deep. And then one day, the old woman woke up, looked out her window from the top of her house, and saw that the shore of the lake was hundreds and hundreds of meters away. And then that's when she realised, maybe I should let them have some of my water. And she opened her window and said, "You can have as much as you want now, take some please." But they couldn't hear her, they were too far away. And the water kept coming out of the magic well and got higher and higher and higher, and it came above the bottom story windows and soon above the top story windows, and she had to climb onto the roof, but still the water kept coming and kept coming, and she was standing on the ceiling of her house with just her chin and her mouth peeking above, but it kept going, and she was lost to the water of the lake. And to this day, some people still say that her house still stands in the middle of the lake, and if you look down, you can see her there looking up, shouting, "Take as much as you need." And that's why Ellesmere is called Ellesmere, because that old lady's name was Mrs Ellis, and it's Ellis's Mere.